So, can a machine ever be truly conscious? I mean, really aware? It's probably one of the biggest, most mind-bending questions of our time. And you know what? We're going to tackle it head-on in this explainer.
You know the scene, right? We've all seen it in movies a million times. The robot that suddenly wakes up, starts thinking, feeling, becoming self-aware. But here's the thing. This isn't just Hollywood anymore. This is a very, very real dream being chased in Silicon Valley by some of the biggest names in tech. So let's think about that. What does that actually mean? We're not just talking about a machine that can ace a test or sound human. We're talking about something with a genuine inner world. A machine that can actually feel the warmth of the sun on its circuits or, the sting of a sad memory. Is that even possible?
Okay, but what if this entire quest is built on a shaky foundation? What if it's just plain wrong? Well, a recent research paper by Eduardo Garrido Merchant basically throws a giant bucket of ice water on this whole dream. He goes so far as to call it pseudoscience. So let's dive into his argument and figure out why he's so sure that consciousness can never be programmed.
All right, first things first. Before we can even get into the weeds here, we have to be super clear on what we're talking about when we say consciousness. Because it's not just about being smart or having a super fast processor. It's something else entirely. The paper zeroes in on something philosophers call phenomenal consciousness. And look, this isn't about what you know, it's about what you feel. It's that raw, totally private experience. The unique what it's like to be you right here, right now.
And the paper has this really interesting way of breaking it down into layers. It says that at the very center of it all is the observer, this pure silent awareness. And everything else, our thoughts, our senses, the taste of coffee, it all exists in this kind of qualia space that the observer just experiences. This brings up a really crucial distinction. That silent observer is not the same thing as your narrative self. The narrative self is, well, it's the story you tell about yourself, your name, your job, all your memories. The paper even brings up things like ego death, where that whole story can just temporarily dissolve. But that core awareness, the observer, is still there. And that's the part we're really talking about. Okay, so if consciousness is this totally private, subjective experience, how in the world could you ever prove a machine has it? And this gets us to the first huge pillar of the argument, the whole problem of measurement. This is really the heart of the matter. Science, it runs on objective, measurable data, but your private experience of seeing the color red is completely 100% your own. There's no tool, no device I can use to measure your personal redness feeling and then compare it to mine. It's just fundamentally subjective. And the author of the paper just lays it out there. Because it's private, because it's subjective, it just falls outside what a scientific method can actually handle. Sure, we can measure the brain activity that's correlated with a feeling, but that's a world away from measuring the feeling itself. And this is why he uses that really loaded word, pseudoscience. See, a key principle of real science is something called falsifiability. The idea is that for any claim to be scientific, there has to be a way to prove it wrong. But if I claim a machine is conscious, you can literally never prove it's not. The claim is unfalsifiable, which, from this point of view, makes it unscientific. But, the argument goes even deeper than just measurement. It suggests there's a fundamental problem with the very nature of computation itself. When you boil it all down, any computer, I don't care how powerful or complex it is just doing this, over and over again. It's following a set of predefined rules. It's a totally deterministic process of shuffling symbols around based on instructions. And this basic model of computation, it's called a Turing machine. And here is the absolute crucial point. Every single algorithm we have, from the calculator on your phone to the most advanced AI on the planet, can be described as a Turing machine. It's just a really, really sophisticated rule follower.
So here it is, the author's central claim. Awareness, that observer we were talking about earlier, it isn't a step in a process. It's not a state in an algorithm. It's the thing that's witnessing all the states. And because of that, the paper argues it's just fundamentally uncomputable. You can't write a set of rules for a raw experience. Now, this isn't some brand new idea. Philosophers have been kicking this around for decades with some really cool thought experiments. You've got the Chinese room argument, which basically says that just following rules to manipulate symbols isn't the same as genuinely understanding. And then there's Mary's room, which powerfully shows that knowing every single physical fact about the color red is completely different from the subjective experience of actually seeing it.
So, with all that said, where does this leave the major scientific theories trying to explain consciousness? Well, according to this paper, they all pretty much run headfirst into these same fundamental roadblocks. This table kind of sums up the critique. So you have big theories like global workspace or integrated information theory. They might be great at explaining how the brain processes information, but the author argues they never actually explain how all that processing magically creates a subjective feeling. They just don't solve what's called the hard problem, and in the end, they have to rely on these big, unprovable philosophical assumptions. So the takeaway here is this, that popular belief, the idea that if we just make a system more and more complex or more and more intelligent, consciousness will somehow magically emerge. Well, according to this paper, that's a huge leap of faith. It's an assumption we just can't prove scientifically. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final question to chew on. If this argument is right, and our intelligence isn't the source of our awareness, then what is? What is this strange, subjective experience that seems to exist beyond computation? And what does that say about what it truly means to be human?